Morning class.
Morning. Morning.
This is lesson number 11. Today is August 13th, the year 2023. Topic of today's lesson is a story of forgiveness. Lesson text comes from Luke 15th chapter 11 down to the 24th verse. The time is 30 AD and the place is Perea. This golden text, it says, "This my son was dead and is alive and, and was lost and is found." That's Luke 15 chapter 24 verse. Today's aim, the fact is to understand the spiritual element in reconciling with others. The principle is to have a spiritual courage to reconcile with someone who may not deserve it. And the application is to reconcile with a person with whom there may be a broken relationship. So this lesson today is talking all about forgiveness. We are talking about the prodigal son. I know everybody is familiar with the prodigal son. The story of the prodigal son. Everybody is familiar with that. But like I've always said in the past, it's just a story. All right, it's just a story that give us a guideline as to what to expect and what to talk about, how to learn and how to live your life. It's just a story. So don't look at this story, because if you follow the storylines, then you will see that it's a man talking about his two sons. You're not hearing about any daughters. You're not hearing about the mothers. You're hearing about a certain man and his sons. So let's not get so caught up into why are they talking about all men and they're not talking about women. Well, just understand the fact that without the women, there would be no men. Amen. So it takes both the man and the woman to have us. Amen. So just because it's not mentioned doesn't mean they're not an important part of the lesson. Right. But before I get started into the lesson, there's something that I have never done, and I don't know why I have never done it yet. It just crossed my mind today when my mother was talking. Since we have been going live, I have never invited anybody to come to the church. So I would like to extend the invitation to whomever would like to come into the church house and have services with us. The address is 453 Supply Road. That's in Marion, South Carolina. Amen. So that's something I've never done. I don't know why I haven't done it. I do apologize for not doing it. So going to go ahead on and get right into the lesson. So like I said, talking about the prodigal son. And again, I say it's just a story. So don't follow the story too much. Don't get too far into the story. Don't get caught too far into it, because there's some things in this story that nobody ever discusses. Because everybody hears about the prodigal son. Nobody tells the story about the father. And a very important person in the lesson. Nobody mentions the brother. Also an important part of the lesson. So I'm going to follow the lesson, and I'm going to talk about the prodigal son because that is in the lesson, but I'm also going to mention the father and the son because they too plays major roles in this lesson. Right. Now the father, his role in this lesson, as the story is laid out, is to represent God. The youngest son is to represent the sinners. And when I say sinners, I mean everybody. Okay? And the oldest son, now, it's supposed to represent the religious leaders, but I'm going to say that the oldest son represents all of those so-called Christians. All of those that feel like They just don't mess up. They don't make no mistakes at all. They're just perfect. That's who the oldest son is going to represent in this lesson. And see, if you read that, I'm glad that Deep read the whole lesson because it stops at 24. You know, so being that he read all the way down, I am going to add the oldest son into the lesson. Yeah. Okay, so it starts out by saying, and he said a certain man had two sons. Didn't mention any names. So I say it's just a story. Okay, add whatever name you want to add to it. It's just a story. It says a certain man had two sons. And the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the portion of goods that falleth to me. And he divided unto them his living. The youngest son basically told his father, I wish you was dead and go ahead on and give me what's mine. So right there, the father died. Okay? Yeah. Understand that, because in order for a son to be given an inheritance of a father, that means the father is no longer there, which means the son can't wait on his father's death. He ready for his inheritance. Now the question is, what is he entitled to? What is this son entitled to? Nothing but life. Nothing but the chance to breathe good fresh air. His father already given him his inheritance when he was born. Now, what he is asking for here is, I see a lot of things that I want that you have, and I can't get it until you die. So go ahead on and give it to me now. Who's to say he won't leave before the Father? Right. So when it says here, give me the portion of goods that fall to me, and the Father divideth unto them his living. So the Father gave his whole entire life to his two sons. Everything that he has worked his whole entire life for, he gave it to his two sons. And he's not dead. So right here, like I said before, the father has died right here. But yet his father was still smiling. His father did not hold him back. He did not say, no, I don't want you to go. He did not say stop. He did not tell him what he should and shouldn't be doing. His father gave in and said, here. Because as I've been taught growing up, I'm going to wait so I can see what happens when you grow up. But it says, and not many days after, the younger son gathered all together and took his journey into the far country, and there wasted his substance with riotous living. So the younger son took half of his father's whole entire life, and he took it and changed it into money. Whatever it was, he had it switched over into money, something that he could actually spend, something that he could go out there and buy something with. And he just took it and just carelessly spent it all. You know, that was so easy for him to do. Understand that this was his father's life. His father worked his whole entire life to give these boys this inheritance. So his whole life he saved all of this stuff and gave it to him. And in a short period of time, the younger son spent it all. It is so easy to get rid of something that you didn't work for at all. That's right. Anything that's not yours, it is so easy to get rid of because you have no idea what the value of it is. You don't know what anybody went through to get it. So when they give it to you, it's easy you to get rid of it because it was easy for you to get. You didn't do much to receive it, so to you it means nothing. And this young boy, now they didn't really mention how old he was, but he was a young boy. He was still staying at home. He wasn't married, so they mentions that he could have been a teenager because his father allowed him to leave on his own. Now, if he wasn't a teenager, I don't think his father would have just let him go like that. Right. It takes time. You got to be mature for your father to say, you know what, I think he'll be able to take care of himself. So he had to be at least a teenager. And he went out and just blew it. Now, remember, nobody mentions the father or the oldest brother, but he divided the inheritance into both sons. So he gave the oldest son half, and he gave the younger son half. And in certain religions, they says that the father divided it into 3 parts, and he gave the oldest son 2 parts and the youngest son 1 part. And that's because, the way things are, the oldest son is the one that's really entitled to all of the inheritance after. And it's up to the oldest to pass it on. Well, so in some lessons, it states that he divided everything into 3 parts and gave the oldest son 2 and the youngest 1. Well, anyway, however it may have went, he gave the oldest son half and he gave the youngest son half. And I'm going to say the youngest son took his half and left, and he was lost. The oldest son took his half and he stayed, and yet he was lost. They both was lost. If you really want to get more clarification on how the lesson actually going, just remember the other parables. There was one parable that talked about the sheep. 99 stayed and 1 wandered off. And when they found that one, they rejoiced and was happy. And see, the thing is, that one that was lost and came back, that's something to rejoice for. Amen. Now, if you knew the heritage of this culture, if you knew what actually went on behind the scenes, see, I was always taught, don't just read the scriptures, read between the lines as well. So there's things that you just don't know that went on. Now, when it comes down to the heritage of these people, the culture, when this boy left with his father's goods, they had a celebration when he left, which in our times is called a funeral. They celebrated the death. I don't know if it was the death of the father or if it was the death of the son, but they celebrated the death because they both died. The father died because no father gives up an inheritance while he's still alive. So by his son saying, you know what, I wish you was gone, just go on and give me what's mine. That means I'm ready for you to die so I can take everything that you own. That hurts a father. Whether the father was crying or not, not very many men will cry. So you will look at a man's face and you don't know what's going on, but men hurt too. We may not look like it, but we hurt too. So his father was sitting there and his father was looking like there's nothing wrong, and all the care in the world is just out the door. His son left and everything is all peachy. Well, the thing was, they had a funeral for the baby boy. And I know later on in the lesson you'll find that his son came back. Well, in that culture, when the son returns, they are supposed to stone him to death because he left. But that didn't happen. See, that just shows you that God is always with you. See, this lesson not only is talking about just a prodigal son, it's letting us know that through God, we all wanders off. We all strays away. We all sin. We all do things that we ain't got no business doing. And at the end, God still have room for us. The only time where you can't ask God for forgiveness is when it's too late. But if you still have breath in your body, you can ask God for forgiveness. Amen. That is the only time when you can't be forgiven is when you can't no longer live. Your life is done. You can't be forgiven anymore. So the thing is that we need to start doing is living the life that we're supposed to be living now. We shouldn't say, you know what, I'm too young to do this and I'm too young to do that. Well, if you go and look out there in the graves and the cemeteries, you know, there's small plots. Mm-hmm. There's plots for babies. There's plots for adolescents. There's plots for toddlers. There's plots for teenagers. There's plots for old folks and young folks. There's plots for everybody. So, saying that you're too young for this and too young for that, no, you're not. If you're not done yet, now's the time to get started. Amen. It says, and when he had spent all there arose a mighty famine in that land, and he began to be in want. Now, when he left off, I'm going to throw this in there. I'm throwing it in there because we got younger generation in here. And, you know, I'm at the age now to where I'm not going to just get involved with just anybody that can't do me no good, you know. So I'm going to throw it in there. I'm going to say, see, when he took this inheritance and went out and started spending, he gained a lot of friends. He said, you know what, don't worry about it. I got this. Just put that on my tab. I got that. Oh, yeah. Come on, round for everybody. Don't put it up there. I got it. You know, so he was partying and having a good time with a lot of people. Again, I'm just throwing stuff in there. I don't know if he was out there partying. See, I'm going to get down to that a little later. I don't know if he was out there partying. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm saying he was out there partying around and doing this and doing that with a whole lot of people. And then he became in want. He no longer had any more money. And now he was in need. There's things that he wanted to get and couldn't get now because he done blew everything that his father gave him. Amen. So now it says that he's in want. He began to want, which means he don't have, which means look around, where's everybody that he was helping out? Amen. He have nobody. Right. He is all alone. But see, the thing about that is, when you're doing good, you're thinking. When you're doing wrong, you're thinking. So, even when you're out there sinning, you have a thought in your head that's telling you you shouldn't be doing this. Right. Yeah. And when you're doing good, you still have a thought in your head saying, is there anybody else I can help? So regardless of what it is you're doing, you're thinking. And see, that conscience is God. That conscience is God telling you, you know what? This is what you should be doing. But see, we don't like listening to it. It can tell us all the good things in the world, but that's not what we want to do. We're going to go out there and do what we want to do. So the whole time he's thinking. Let me get down to where he really started thinking it. It says here, and he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country. And he went and he sent him into his fields to feed swine. Now, another question or statement that I'm going to tell you. Don't ever say you will never do anything that you don't think you'll do. Don't ever say you will never do anything that you might do. This is a Jew that we're talking about here. And they do not, for one, they don't work for Gentiles. And for two, they don't deal with swine. But yet, he took a job from a Gentile, working in his pig pen, feeding swine. Mm-hmm. He's doing exactly what he's always told himself he would never. Now, think again who we're talking about now. His father was a king. His father was a high up. Now, I said, look at this is God. So that puts him in the place as being a prince. What place does a prince have feeding swine? See, he left his inheritance. Understand that. His inheritance wasn't really what his father had. What his father had was what his father worked for. His inheritance was the life that was given to him by his father.
That's right.
That was his inheritance. But he was looking at all material things. You see, those material things didn't bother his father not one bit. Now, yeah, his father could have talked to him, could have fussed at him, could have said, you know what, you're not ready for this, you're not ready for that. But the thing is, how would his father have known that he was a father if he had never let him leave? His father would never have known that the job that he's been teaching his boys to do was right unless he would let them leave and live it. How do I know that my father taught me good? Not until I left the house. Once I left the house, everything that my father has taught me, I had to put it in play out there. So his father would never have known that he did a good job or not until he let him leave. He didn't hold him back. He says, go ahead. Take half of what I've worked hard for my whole life and live with it. Son couldn't live that long. See, he was already broke. It says, and he would fain have filled his belly with the husk that the swine did eat, and no man gave unto him. Nobody paid him any attention. Even all that he's been doing. All that money he's been dishing out to just random people. Yeah. Just here, there you go, take that. I got it here. You got it. If you with me, I got you. Where was these people when he really needed the help? He didn't leave the country. He's still in that same country. So where are all of these people that he spent all of his father's life savings on? You're only good to people when you have.
That's all. That's all.
When you no longer have, you're no good to them. Just remember this. The only people that you can always fall back on is your family. Whether you like them or not, your family is the only ones you can really fall back on, because you can't get rid of your family. I don't care how bad they are, you can't get rid of them. The only thing you can do is love them. Love everything about them. All the hate, all the hurt, the harm, everything. You got to love it all. Because when things get down to being bad, them the only ones you can call on.
You got that right.
Even your friends that you say are your closest friends are not there for you. If they are, you got a good friend. But your family would never leave you. Married couples, they get married, they get a divorce. But guess who they always stay in contact with?
Amen. That's right.
Those husbands and wives that has gotten divorced, they still keep in contact. Because you cannot divorce family.
Nope.
You're there forever. It says, and he would fain. So right here, it's talking about him thinking. He didn't do it. All right, let's get that right. He didn't do it. He was thinking about how good that corn husk look at this point. He done got so far down that he has thought about eating the hog's food. And yet, he's thinking. He's still thinking. And when he came to himself, he said, how many hired servants of my father's have bread enough and to spare, and I perish with hunger. So he's thinking. He's sitting there in the middle of worst. In the middle of all just nastiness, all disgust. He's sitting there. And he's thinking. See, when you're doing wrong, you're thinking. See, he done messed up really bad and he's still thinking. I done left where I was being protected. I done left the house where I never had to worry about being hungry. And the people that worked for my father, they never went hungry, not one day. And look at me. I'm sitting in here thinking about eating the hog food. Eating slop is what I'm thinking about eating. And my father's servants, they eat food. They eat good stuff. So he's thinking, I will arise and go to my father, and will say unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before thee. At this point, all he's doing is rehearsing. See, he thought about what he left. And he thought about it. He's sinning for not caring. It's kind of hard to care about anything you didn't work for. That's why when he was in that hog pen looking at that swine, that's when he really thought about how much work he was really putting in, because he was actually working for nothing. He was gaining nothing and working for it. He was hungry about to eat the hog food that he was working to feed the hogs. He understands now how much work his father put in for the things that he just squandered on. And he arose and came to, well, you know what? Something I wanted to touch on, I just passed right by it. Verse 17, it says, and when he came to himself. They said he was a teenager. But he came to himself. It's saying that he came to his senses. Yeah. He realized, he understood. Well, they said he came to himself at this age. How many in here has already come to themselves? Yeah, I'm going to put my hand down too. Because I'm still finding myself. I know who I am and I know what I'm trying to accomplish, but I have not found myself yet. I'm still out searching. That's right. You have the two scribes right here sitting on the front row. And you can clearly see that they love each other. They've been married, I don't know how many years now, but they've been married quite a bit. I know they got married before I did. And I've been married 18 years now. So they've been married for quite a while. But yet they are still getting married. They're still learning each other. Every day that they live with each other, they're still learning something new about each other. It took them less than 30 minutes to walk down that aisle and say, I do. But it's taken the rest of their lives to get married. Because they will never know each other until they learn each other. The old and great. And they'll still be trying to figure each other out.
That's it.
But the thing that this young boy did, this is another thing I want to touch on. The thing that he did when he left, and that's something that I'm going to put out there for y'all. Stop looking in everybody else's houses trying to make your house like that. See, this boy left because he thought everybody else had it better than he did. And he thought that his father was stopping him from being a man. He thought his father was stopping him from living. The thing about parents, we don't stop you from living. We help you live. So stop looking at everything that you see as a negative thing. Anytime you think that we're stopping you, you say you ain't got no clue what you're talking about. You don't know, you're not there. Well, the problem is we was there. And because we were there is the reason we can tell you these things. So he's looking at everybody else and now he's ready to leave because he feels like he don't have it as good as the next door people do. But the thing about that is, you're not in there. And they're not in your house. You don't know how good or how bad anybody has it until you step foot in that house. Once you step up in that house, then you'll see. You actually had it better. This boy ain't had to worry about nothing. Nothing but what his father said. Wake up, get up, do this, take out the trash, wash your clothes, iron, sweep the floor, mop. That's all he had to worry about. But now he thought he was grown enough to be out on his own. Now he realized he ain't got time for this, he ain't got time for that. He ain't got time to do nothing. Where do he find time for himself? See, he done jumped into manhood before he grew up. See, as a man, you ain't got time for yourself. Because as a man, being a man means you take care of everything that is surrounded and attached to you. The man gonna like it because he's doing his job. He's doing his part. See, when you see that man going out there looking the part, looking like $1 million and doing this and doing that, and his family needs, he ain't no man. The man always puts himself last. But see, this father here, he put himself last. This father took everything he had and gave it to his family because that was a man. I'm going to get down to what I'm trying to get to. It says here, and he arose and came to his father. But when he was a great way off, his father saw him and had compassion and ran and fell on his neck and kissed. No, I didn't say fall. His father didn't fall. It says fell on his neck, which means he hugged him. Okay? He hugged him and gave him a kiss. Yeah. Okay, so, like I said, don't look at this as being a story. All right, so I'm well past the story part. All right, it says, but when he was yet a great way off, his father saw him. Even when he was out making all these mistakes, his father knew exactly what his son was capable of. His father didn't look at his son's mistakes. His father saw his son for what he raised him to be. His father says, I know you are better than this, so I'm not going to look down on you. I'm going to let you go out there and do what you said you was going to do, but I know there's better for you out there. So when his father saw him, his father saw everything about him, and he didn't even see it. His father says, you are better than this. This ain't the life that you need to be living. So his father ran to him, which shows that, see, his father saw him before he saw his father. Which lets you know that his father sat and waited because he knew his son was going to return. Because his son was not yet equipped for what he was about to face. See, many of us is sitting here looking for a certain lifestyle and we haven't gotten it yet. The reason you haven't gotten it yet is because you're not ready. You want to be rich, but you're not ready. If you had, many of us, if we had $100 in our pocket today, it'll be gone by, what time is it now? 12. It'll be gone by 12 o'clock. Because we're not ready for it. So the life that God has planned for you, the reason you don't have it yet is because you're not ready for it. You'll get it when the time is right. It says, and the son said unto his father. Now this is the things that he had rehearsed. His son said to his father, I have sinned against heaven and in thy sight, and am no more worthy to be called thy son. So now he finally was able to get out what he was rehearsing his whole trip home. Father, I'm not worthy to be called your son. Make me one of your servants. I started out as being your son, and I messed up. I don't want you to go back on your word. See, his father ran out there and grabbed somebody that the people was going to stone for leaving. When the son of a household leaves his father like that, the punishment is stoning. That didn't happen. See, whenever you stray away and you go out there into the world and you start doing things that you know you ain't got no business doing, the punishment is death. But God don't kill us. God gives us another chance. I said another chance, not a second chance. God gives us another chance because we got time. See, we don't know how much time, but as long as you're still breathing, you got time. But just understand, as long as you're still breathing, and we don't know how much longer that is. So while you still have breath in your body, make time to change. See, but this is what the father did when the son says he's not worthy to be called his son. His father says, says to the servants, bring forth the best robe and put it on him. And put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet. And bring hither the fattest calf and kill it. And let us eat and be merry. They're celebrating this. He says, you know what? My son didn't run away. My son came home. My son found himself finally. This is a celebration. My son was lost, and now he's found. My son is here. He thought that he knew better, but now my son is back home. This is something to have a celebration for. My son found himself. You know how you do when you have a child that leave home, go to the military or they go to college, and they stay gone for 6-7 months, and then they come home on the weekend. They want to have a celebration. They want to put something together, have some type of party, cookout or whatever. People look at this as, they think the prodigal son is bad. The prodigal son is not bad. Okay? The prodigal son is no more than us. The prodigal son is a normal, average sinner. Okay, he has done certain things and now he realizes it's not right and he turned everything back over. He says, you know what? I am sorry. I apologize. Please forgive me for all of these things. He changed. That's a prodigal son. A prodigal son finds his way home. That's what the meaning of a prodigal son is. Somebody that left because they thought they knew better and then realized they didn't know anything. And they came back home. They came back to reality. They realized that the things that I was trying to do wasn't right. The life I was trying to live, it wasn't right. That's a prodigal son. So if he's the prodigal son, who is his oldest brother? Like I said before, I'm going to call him that Christian that says they're a Christian. The one that think they know everything. 24 says, for this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And they began to be merry. So he's telling that my son is no longer lost. He knows right from wrong. He knows that everything that I've been trying to tell him all of these years, I was right this whole time. And you know the reason why his father can say he was right? Because he's been there. And he's done that. See, there is no parent that will jump down a child's throat for nothing. No parent will jump down their child's throat for no reason at all. If a parent fuss at their child, it's because they needed it. Parents get upset to see their child going down a path that they've been beating into their head over and over and over. Right. Don't do this. Don't do that. Don't live that life. But yet they still see them walking that path. That's when the parent feels the need to step in and take a harder approach. Because they don't want to see their seeds going down that path. See, as the parent, we are the sower. We're the planter. We're the ones that's responsible for the growth. Now, once that growth comes up, we want to see exactly what we put down in there. If we don't see what we put down in there, something went wrong somewhere. And it's time to start pruning certain things back. Now, y'all know what I mean by pruning. Okay, I'm not the only one, because the Bible did say, spare the rod, you spoil the child. So we got to start pruning some things back. No, because some things just don't belong. Some things need to be out the way. Now, I know I'm done with that part, but like I said before, there was 3 men in this lesson. There was the father, which we've already talked about him. There was the youngest son, which we've already talked about him. What about this older brother? Nobody mentioned him. If you keep on reading, you'll find where the father started talking to him. And that's why I'm saying I was glad that Deke read that far down. Because now we've already read The whole first half of this lesson. We've already read that. And we read everything that we needed to know about the youngest son. Verse 30. Can somebody read verse 30 for me? I just wouldn't feel right saying it and talking about it. Somebody read that for me. Verse 30.
But as soon as thy son was come, which has devoured thy living with harlots, thou hast killed for him the fatted calf.
Okay, so verse 30 is the oldest son talking to the father. And he has said, why do you do all of these things for him? He has taken all of your money and blew it in the harlot's house, which is the prostitute's home, and he spent it just doing God knows what with it. Now, my question is, how did the oldest son know what he was doing with this money? You know, the thing is, in order for this oldest son to have known what the youngest boy was doing with it, he would have had to have been there. Which puts him in just as much problem as the youngest son was. The only difference is the youngest son knew that he made a mistake. And he asked for forgiveness. But this oldest one, he saw the mistake happening, did nothing about it. All he want to do is try to compare himself to the young. Says, I have never done this. I stayed here with you, but yet you were still lost. I did everything that you asked me to do, but yet you were still lost. I didn't go out there and spend your money. I still got it right here, but yet you still lost. See, only thing he can do is point fingers at his little brother and say, he made this mistake, he made that mistake, he did this, he did that, and I didn't do any of these things. But what did you do? See, before you start pointing fingers at somebody else, understand where your faults is too.
Amen. That's it. That's it right there.
Some people just has just many faults as others. See, you're just looking at what's going on. You don't know. You see the life that I'm living. You don't know how I'm living it. You see the things that God gave me. You don't know how I got it. Only thing that you're doing is that one thing that I told y'all not to do is speculate. You're saying that this is who I am when that's clearly not who I am. Trying to put a name on me when I didn't even put a name on it. See, this youngest son, he is just like us. He has lived his life the way he thought he should have been living his life until he learned how he should have been living his life. Everybody is not going to be put up and live in the manner of grace. Everybody is not supposed to live the perfect life. Everybody is not supposed to know God right off. Everybody is not going to do these things right off. Some people have to be pulled to God. Some people have to be told who God is. Some people have to be introduced. Because, believe it or not, in some households, God is not introduced. So when you run across certain people and you start telling them that they should be doing this and should be doing that, well, they don't know. Because everybody wasn't introduced. Now, I overheard a conversation. That's why I'm not going to say no names. I'm not going to mention any names. But I overheard a conversation. And a man was having a conversation with a little boy. And he says, you know what? Why don't you come to church with me Sunday? You know what the little boy said? I don't do church. But that basketball game you were telling me about, I get down with that. Which means church is not introduced to him. The most about church that this boy has heard was the conversation that him and that man had about coming to church with me. See, you cannot jump down anybody's throat because they're not talking the same language you are. Sometimes you have to introduce that language to them.
That's right.
Everybody was speaking in tongue, but only a few knew what each other was saying. That's because only a few knew. God is not introduced to everybody. Just like I was listening to my mother tell me that if you want people to come, you're going to have to invite them.
Yeah. That's right.
And I just realized that I have never invited anybody to the church. Other than just being up here, but people see me, which means, what's the need in coming? He's on live. What's the need in showing up? All I got to do is turn on the TV or turn on my computer. He's there. But if I don't introduce you, no, just the other night we had a bad thunderstorm. And the lights flickered twice. And then that last time, they was out for a few hours. Who's to say we're not going to have a thunderstorm like that on a Sunday? And I can't stream live. It's just certain things that we got to learn. We got to stop judging people for one. That's one of the main things. We got to stop judging people because we're all not living the same. See, if you look around, we all look different. We all think different. We all different sizes, different colors. We may say we're black, but we all different colors. We all are different. God did not create us all to be the same. Which means what's going on in my head, guarantee it's not going on in y'all head. I'm thinking about what I'm going to eat today. Y'all probably ain't thinking about that. I know I got size on me. I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking about food right now. And I still got time before I can eat, but that's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
A lot of us is not thinking about that. So we can't look at people and judge who they are based on what they look like. We can't judge people based on the household they come out of. Because there are certain households where they're just criminals all in the house and you got one savior. And you got saved folks all in the house and you got one devil. But you can't judge people by what household they came out of. See, this young man came out of a wealthy home. But he was poor. He didn't have anything. Thought he had friends until he went broke. When he went broke, he realized that the people that he had or thought he had, he didn't have them. They were just hanging on to what he was holding on to. Once that was gone, they was gone. So we got to understand the life that we live, it's not just going to affect us. It's going to affect everybody that's around us too. I'm going to turn this over into the hands of the superintendent.